Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Chhavi Maggu. I am a second-year MBA student, and I'm also a vice president on the board of the Green Business Club here at the Business School. We have a diverse audience in the room today. We have students from the Business School, Engineering School, School of Professional Studies, Climate School, SEPA, and you name it. But what makes this event quite special as well is we have gained support from the Climate Group. So this event is actually open to the public as well and is part of the official Climate Week schedule. So if this is your first time at the Business School, welcome to CBS. And I'm excited about the topic we're going to be discussing today, which is circularity and decarbonization in the heavy industry sector. Before we welcome our expert panelists to the stage, I thought that a great way to introduce the topic is to explore how we're actually looking into this topic at Columbia itself. So without further ado, I'm excited to invite Martin Dietrich Brauch to the stage to give us opening remarks. Martin is the lead researcher at the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment.
Thank you so much, Chhavi. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Columbia University. I have the great pleasure and honor to welcome you all here, as well as to our event on circularity meets decarbonization in heavy industry. Thank you to our co-hosts, the Tamara Institute of Social Enterprise and Climate Change and the Columbia Business School Green Business Club. My name is Martin Dietrich Brauch. I'm a lead researcher at the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment, CCSI. We are an applied research center at the Columbia Law and Climate Schools, and CCSI is also proud to support this event. I'm here to welcome you as well as to share a little bit about the work that we do at CCSI at the intersection of circularity and decarbonization. Our center works across sectors to support stakeholders, including businesses and policymakers, with ideas and guidance to advance policies and practices for sustainable investment in circular economy approaches and decarbonization solutions. I'll give you just a few examples of our work in mining, renewable energy, and industrial goods value chains. Building on our expertise in mining, we have studied circular economy approaches for mine land repurposing. By drawing on existing remediation practices, we have offered guidance for producers to restore and repurpose mine lands rather than harming the ecosystem through land waste. We are also promoting the concept of metals as a service, the idea that economic actors would use but not own the metals to facilitate the reuse and recycling of those materials. Metals as a service models can help transform the global mining industry and propel circularity by creating incentives to develop business relationships along the value chain to ensure efficient metal use in product design and effective end-of-life collection and recovery of materials. Having spoken about mining, let's turn to the intersection of mineral and renewable energy value chains. In this space, we have published guidance to enable global circularity in the mining, the mineral value chains of solar photovoltaic, solar PV panels, and wind turbines. CCSI has analyzed the technological and logistical hurdles for circularity in these value chains, exploring the necessary policy and financial support that is necessary for the adoption of circular business models across solar PV and wind turbine value chains. Through our work, we have identified avenues for action by mining and metals companies, solar and wind manufacturers, power utilities, to enhance circularity practices and move toward decarbonization solutions. And finally, speaking briefly about the industrial goods sector, we have created a 5-part framework to help assess the circularity practices of industrial goods companies, based on circular economy literature and an in-depth survey of circularity practices described in dozens of industrial good companies' sustainability reports. We've developed this framework that is rooted in real-world examples of credible practices found across a variety of industrial good companies, from day-to-day operations to downstream collaborations to policy engagement. And our work then serves as a tool for companies and investors seeking to implement and encourage circularity. If you want to learn about a little bit more about our work, all of it is publicly available on our website, ccsi.columbia.edu. Throughout these examples in our work, we have seen that circular economy approaches are not only about reducing waste, but also about advancing climate goals, protecting biodiversity, and achieving other sustainable development goals more broadly, with one caveat: so long as we do it right. Businesses need to take action by prolonging product life cycles, reducing the amount of waste that reaches their landfill, and encouraging suppliers and customers to adopt circular practices. In turn, policymakers need to use the policy, legal, regulatory tools at their disposal, including both carrots and sticks, to increase the uptake of circular economy practices throughout the economy. And both companies and governments need to work together with all other stakeholders: academia, civil society, financiers, communities, consumers, with a view to unlocking just transitions to a sustainable, circular, and low-carbon world. So please join me in thanking our panelists in advance for their insights on circularity and decarbonization in heavy industry, which hopefully will build on the knowledge that we're also building here at Columbia University. And based on these exchanges and learnings at this event and hopefully beyond, we hope to expand both the scope and scale of circular economy approaches and decarbonization solutions throughout our economies. Thank you for listening to me. Welcome again, and enjoy the event.
Martin. So as you heard from Martin, today's focus is looking at how a circular economy approach can help us tackle climate change and work towards our decarbonization goals. I'd like to invite to stage our esteemed panel of experts. We have Kunal Sinha, who is the global lead for recycling at Glencore. Then we have Han Zhang, the Global Sustainability Director for Packaging and Specialty Plastics at Dow, and Danielle Holly, the North America lead for the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us here today in what I can imagine is quite a busy and active New York Climate Week schedule. As I mentioned at the start, we have quite a diverse audience today. So I think for the benefit of our panel, I'd like to open with a question to the audience. Could you please raise your hand if you have worked on the topic of circularity or if you have experience in this area? Okay, quite a few. And please keep your hand raised if this experience extends to the heavy industry sector. So I see it's quite mixed. So I think I'd like to open up with a reference to an Ellen MacArthur Foundation report looking at how circularity can tackle climate change, specifically looking at our global current emissions today. They can be grouped into two categories. About 45% of our emissions are linked to making products, and the remaining 55% are energy-related emissions, which come from building clean energy infrastructure that can really help tackle these. So today we're going to be looking at these two categories and this dual opportunity. On the former, how sustainable innovation in product packaging can help us tackle that. And then on the latter, how security of supply of critical minerals for this clean energy infrastructure can help us work towards that. And I'm excited to explore that with our panelists today and look at how circular economy business models can help approach this, because as Martin was sharing, it's really around doing it right, and the private sector has a big role to play. So let me start with Danielle. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation plays a key role in accelerating the circular economy. Could you share with us what are some of the specific nuances in applying a circular economy approach to the heavy industry sector?
Hi, yeah, there we go, there we go. Thank you, and it is wonderful to be here and wonderful to see so many of those hands raised for both of those questions. So we've got, I think, a lot of practitioners in the room and experts in the room as well, so eager to hear your thoughts and questions. I'll just reinforce what you opened with, which is that 45% of our greenhouse gas emissions is related to the products and the food that we produce, which means that we cannot achieve climate change goals, targets, and progress without the circular economy. And it has been a, at best, disconnected conversation, but really under-discussed conversation during Climate Week and climate conversations more broadly, how we can leverage the circular economy. There are a bunch of different ways that the circular economy can be leveraged for different heavy industries. Back up for a moment for those of you who don't know the Ellen MacArthur Foundation or are not familiar with us. We are about 13 years into our operation, and our sole mission is to accelerate progress on the transition to the circular economy. And we do that through engaging business in pre-competitive conversation and in raising their ambition in different ways, and then through policymaking, because voluntary action by business alone won't get us there. I'll kind of share with you a couple of highlights from our work in industrial decarbonization, which is really where our climate work anchors and takes shape. We recently published a report about a year ago, a little less, on how circular economy provides an opportunity for industrial decarbonization, and particularly within the built environment. There were a couple of sectors that we explored, but particularly within the built environment, we see that 11% of our greenhouse gas emissions are associated with the built environment, the steel and concrete and all of the things that go into making our buildings. That about 25% of our waste stream is related to deconstruction and the demolition of materials, and that up to 60% of those materials could be easily reused without any re-engineering or modification. And so, we talked, actually on the way in, we were talking about how for so much of the decarbonization of heavy industry, the solutions are already there. There is new technology that is needed, but a lot of the technology, a lot of the processes are already there. It's about actually activating them and moving what is a fairly fractured value chain in many heavy industry sectors, and accelerating partnerships and figuring out how to bring up those bright spots and those opportunities, which I think we'll talk a little bit about today.
For that, Danielle. Han, as a leading material sciences company, Dow plays a big role in closing the gap on plastics packaging and closing that kind of plastics loop. Could you tell us a bit around where Dow operates in the plastics value chain, and again, your perspectives on what role circularity plays specifically in the chemical sector?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Han Zhang. I'm the Global Sustainability Director for Dow Packaging and Specialty Plastic business. So Dow is a material science company, and we have a business cover from plastic packaging to consumer solutions to construction chemicals, and even like a mobility solutions. So Dow is in the chemical value chain, and given our size and our position in the value chain, we have a critical role to play in terms of advancing circular economy as well as decarbonizing. That's why Dow, we set up a very ambitious target. So by 2030, we want to commercialize 3 million metric tons of circular and renewable solutions. And also, we have a decarbonization roadmap. We call it Path to Zero. So by 2030, we want to reduce our absolute emission by 5 million metric tons. That's a 15% reduction compared to our 2020 baseline, or 30% reduction compared to our 2005 baseline. And we want to reach carbon neutral by 2050. So within Dow, I'm very lucky. I have the opportunity to oversee a lot of projects across the globe to improve plastic recyclability, improve recycling rate, as well as develop low carbon solutions. Actually, Chhavi, I think we met during the Economist Sustainability Week, right, in New York City. It's in May. I think that's just after 7 years, I live in Singapore, live in Asia Pacific. I help company to build the circular economy strategy and launch commercial recycling program there. So I'm very glad to be here, and I can share more about my experience.
Han, turning to Glencore now. Glencore is one of the world's largest diversified natural resources company. You produce, you market, and also recycle materials, specifically on the recycling front, end-of-life electronics, batteries, and other products that contain critical minerals. Could you share how this aligns with Glencore's mission, and what is the role that circularity plays in the mining sector specifically?
Okay, thanks, Chhavi. Kunal Sinha, Global Head of Recycling, Glencore. Maybe I'll answer in reverse. So why mining, what mining sector, and then I'll come back to Glencore. So Climate Week is already interesting. You go to all these events, you learn interesting facts. I mean, I happen to know some of these facts, but I thought I'll start with a couple of facts. So I think as of last year, the UN estimate is that we produced about 62 million tons of e-waste. That is more than what they estimated we would produce in 2022, 3 years prior. So that's the world's fastest growing waste category by any amount. So that's one. I learned yesterday that we produced 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste, because there was an event where the head of the UNEP was talking about. And then another fact which we should all sort of think about is, at this point, the combined weight of all man-made materials, like everything we have constructed ever since humanity has existed, is greater than the weight of all the species on Earth. So just let it sink for a minute. So things we have built is sort of bigger than life itself. So that's our built environment. And I think that those are all important facts to keep in mind, sort of when you talk about circularity. So then, what can mining companies do? What does Glencore do? I think when you talk about mining, there's two types of circularity. There's process circularity, which is, Martin touched on that, about how you can, do better land management, water treatment, recycling, and how you can incorporate circular principles in your process of mining and smelting. And then there's product circularity. This is just some language to be able to talk cohesively. So product circularity is mostly what I deal with, which is things like e-waste and batteries, which is products have been made, now you're trying to recycle them. So why should mining companies care? I mean, frankly, in my personal opinion, if you look at the task ahead and how many tons of resources you need, pick any material you want, there's just not enough primary resource to meet any of the targets. Any model you pick, IPCC, IEA, and even if you factor those models by some conservatism, there's just not enough material, and there's not enough time, because it takes a long time for a mine to come online. So I'm not saying mining and recycling are in competition. Actually, they're not, because you need as much as mining as possible, done responsibly, and you need as much as recycling and circularity as possible. And only with the combination of two, you can actually close the gap. And so briefly, like, what does Glencore do? So our history is, you may know us more as a mining company with a very diversified portfolio. The recycling part is less understood, but some of our assets have been recycling for 80 plus years. We pretty much pioneered the recycling of e-waste in the world. At one point, we were the first and the only ones, and the largest. Today, we are one of the largest, which is good. We want other people to do it. So we've recycled more than 1 million tons of chips and electronics and wires and anything that's a circuit board in your devices. We've recycled more than 1 million tons of that. So if you think about it in terms of device weight displaced from a landfill, that's probably 10, 20 times that number, because electronics is only 10% of the weight of a laptop or phone. So that's a huge sort of history. We've been recycling batteries for 20 years before battery recycling was a new industry. And a whole bunch of other exciting I'll just quickly touch, because Martin mentioned it, we are working on solar panel recycling today with some very exciting startups. So us as a metallurgical company, we're partnered with a few startups. I'll name one, Solar Cycle, amazing team. We're doing solar recycling. We're looking at what will be the end of life of EVs and how that should be better than the end of life of ICEs. So there's a lot of history, and now we're looking at where the space goes and what role we can play.
Much, Kunal. And I definitely want to dive into the topic of partnerships, because I know Glencore had an exciting announcement this morning as well, so we'll dive into that in a sec. But firstly, I hope this was helpful in terms of getting an overview of each of the organizations, and it's great to kind of understand how that applies to heavy industry sectors specifically. I'd like us to dive into the big theme of the event today, which is the nexus of circularity and decarbonization. Specifically, this is an open question to all of you, whoever would like to start, but how can circular economy solutions help us achieve industrial decarbonization, and what role does circularity play in decarbonizing the cross-sector value chain? Because I think specifically the chemicals and the mining sector are very high up in that value chain, so there's a lot of trickle-down effect. So I know it's a big question, but really keen to dive into that nexus point. Whoever would like to start.
I'm happy to start. So question is, how does circular economy support industrial decarb solutions, essentially? So I think, again, it kind of anchors back in the portion of our emissions that's related to the way that we produce and manufacture goods. I think one of the things that the circular economy unlocks is, one, just innovation, right? Like a real look at the different parts of the value chain to understand how they can connect and make what is right now linear, circular. I was at a breakfast this morning where a woman who was representing one of the big consumer packaged brands says one of the things that bringing circular economy to as a practice to their industrial decarb and their climate conversations has done is you figure out which parts of the circle you push on and where you need innovation. And in her instance, she was saying, actually, we didn't need a ton of innovation, but we needed innovation. We needed new technology in one very particular area that supported our decarbonization goals, but it also supported our broader business and operational goals. And I think that's part of what circular economy brings to the table related to decarbonization, but just more broadly. The other piece is that it gets to consumer and business and policy engagement, and we're seeing more and more of a business policy interface when it comes to circular economy and decarbonization. And we have right now, and the reason this conversation is really exciting at this moment is we have really historic legislation related to our infrastructure coming from the federal government, IRA and bill, both Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure bill. And right now we're at a moment where we need to transform some of that money that is flowing into the right projects and infrastructure. And I think this is where we get to the design phase of the circular economy. This is historic levels of funding that's going into really transforming our infrastructure. And so, like, if right now we can get a circular economy lens and perspective, and those grants that are coming from those two bills, and there's other funds, and climate funding is raising as well, then this is the moment where we actually can design into the system a circular economy solution. And what that looks like for each industry, as you're hearing, right, is super different, and it's a little bit too nuanced to, at it in an hour-long panel, get to in anything more than a high level. But I think we've been kind of orienting around the size of the challenge, but I think the size of the opportunity right now is really significant, and it takes the kind of design mindset that circular economy brings to the table. I don't know if that answers your big question, but it's one answer.
Thank you for trying to answer that big question. No, absolutely. I think circularity by design is such a key principle to that circular economy approach.
Yeah, well, I would say circularity and decarbonization, they are integrated. Actually, they are the two sides of one problem. When we talk about the circular economy, you have to define what is circular economy. For Dow, circularity, that means we are a material science company. We want to keep a molecule as long as possible throughout the life cycle to create a value. So what is the molecule for us? For plastic business, the molecule is hydrocarbon. So if we can achieve a circular economy, which means we keep this hydrocarbon molecule be useful in the society, and the carbon bond won't become a carbon dioxide, and naturally you will decarbonize. And you may ask a question, hey, maybe you shouldn't produce a plastic, because if you don't dig out the oil, if you don't produce the plastic, the hydrocarbon molecule won't come out. But you have to also to understand that what is the value of plastic. I think earlier you and Danielle both mentioned 45% of the global greenhouse gas emissions are associated with the product and also food. And when we ship those product and food around, you need a packaging to protect them. Without an adequate packaging, the food will become perished, and all the greenhouse gas emissions will be wasted, and actually will generate even more greenhouse gas emissions. So very thin plastic packaging, let's say a shrink sleeve. If you go to a grocery store, you may see a cucumber wrapped up with a very thin plastic film. And less than 1 gram of plastic can extend the shelf life of a cucumber from 3 days to 15 days. So it's a significant benefit. You may also ask, hey, maybe we should replace plastic with other materials. But there are many studies to show if you use the best available material on the market today, no matter if it's aluminum, glass, or whatever, the greenhouse gas emissions will increase by more than 80%. Because the plastic is very efficient to produce, it's very lightweight, so we cannot decarbonize this society without the plastic. Then let's get to the question, how we can make a plastic circular. We need to promote the reuse, recycle, and redesign the packaging. For example, we started design for recyclability approach. Decades ago, many plastic packaging, many of the plastic packaging, they are non-recyclable because they are multi-material laminates. And we developed technology. We can convert the multi-material laminate structure into mono-material. And now those kind of packaging is more and more available on the market. Then the next step is how can we get it back into our system so that we can recycle them. That's why we set up the target by 2030. We want to commercialize 3 million metric tons of circular and renewable solution, which means we may need 4 to 5 million metric tons of plastic waste so that we can convert them into a post-consumer recycled material, and we can keep the hydrocarbon molecule in the loop in the society. And also we are decarbonizing our operation. As I mentioned, by 2030, we want to reduce 5 million metric tons of absolute greenhouse gas emissions. And one of the flagship project is our project in Alberta, Canada. We are building the world first and largest zero carbon footprint ethylene plant. Zero scope 1 and 2 emissions. Once we have this plant online, we can decarbonize 25% of our ethylene production, which means in the future we can produce a zero carbon footprint plastic, and we can even produce those plastic from a recycled material or even like a renewable material. So this is how we tackle circularity and decarbonization. We don't treat them separately, and we see they're integrated together.
No, absolutely. I think maintaining that kind of line of thought around circularity by designing for recyclability, that kind of how that comes hand in hand. And thank you so much for addressing, I think, the elephant in the room around a plastics company playing a big role in circularity. I think there's kind of probably a similar thought related to the mining sector. I'm curious, Kunal, if you could share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll make a controversial statement to start with, but I think, the word decarbonization is kind of an interesting word. If you think about it, carbon by itself and hydrogen by itself, there's no problem, right? The carbon cycle is the first very natural circular cycle that nature has. So if you study carbon cycle, carbon by construct, the natural ecosystem is very circular on carbon. And hydrogen by itself is actually quite green. So the problem is, building on Han's point, is the hydrocarbon molecule and how we have harnessed the energy from the hydrocarbon molecule. And I'm not an expert on oil and gas, but it looks like, just from the whatever years I spent in studying chemistry, the approach with fossil fuels is actually quite of a linear sort of a economy, because you actually have to consume the hydrocarbon molecule to convert chemical energy into other forms of energy and then use the energy. So by construct, that's a very linear process. And again, I don't have an issue with it, because that has allowed a lot of economies to modernize and develop and provide energy. So the reason I think circularity is pretty much linked to decarbonization, similar thought as Dr. Han, which is, if you want to go to an endless source of energy and start with renewables and everything else, then that process built on storage, generation storage, transmitting in the grid, like everything else. If you think about it, that entire ecosystem, no molecule is actually getting consumed, right? You're just transferring the energy to one form to the other. And if you take an example of copper, something very dear to my heart, like the copper molecule never gets consumed in anything you do. Once you've produced copper, the copper is there and it stays. So there's no way to destroy copper once you've produced it, right? You can only lose it in landfill or somewhere else, but it's there. You produce the copper. It's not like, at the end of its useful life, the copper dissipates into some other form. Yeah, you will get some oxidation, I get it. So inherently, the circular economy is different from the fossil fuels-based economy because of this linear circular nature. And then I think there's the three subtle points which help with the decarb. So when you talk about circular value chains, there's various studies, various metals. I have done a lot of work on copper. Like basically, on average, recycled copper has 80% lower carbon footprint than mined copper. So if you're building anything with copper, if you're using recycled copper, you immediately made an impact on your carbon footprint. Circular value chains are different. I think, in a linear economy, we have noticed essentially, one supplier only needs to talk to the next leg in the chain and whatnot. So I'm sort of going back to Danielle's point here, which is, in a circular economy, you're forced to talk to everybody. And that's when you are forced to realize, and this is with actual experience, we spent 2 years on something called the Circular Electronics Partnership, which was launched 2 years ago. We had spent 2 years designing it along with Dell and Microsoft and a bunch of OEMs. This was in the electronic space. The goal was 100% product circularity by 2030. I'm pretty sure we won't get there, but I'm also pretty sure we will be in a much better place by 2030 than if we didn't have the CEP. But having seen the sort of the power of dialogue, when you talk to someone you naturally would never speak to, like an OEM had no reason to call a mining company other than if they care about circularity, because OEMs are making commitments about recycled content by year X, Y, Z. And having had this forum to talk very openly, I think everyone realized that for devices to get all that circular content back, there needs to be downstream recycling and refining capacity. But the downstream capacity is not owned by the OEMs, and the companies or industries that own them are not going to make that investment with their own dollars if they don't believe that the supply of recycled stock will be there. So it was a very interesting exercise, and was an exercise. Then we've launched something out of it, and that's where you actually now have a taxonomy to talk about circularity and design for circularity, design for end of use, not end of life, because there is another life after that use. So all of that kind of really hits at the heart of decarbonizing, and you can apply it to industrial ecosystems, you can apply it to consumer ecosystems. And the fact that we had a small role to play in all of these, and these are very active, dynamic dialogues, is very sort of encouraging. And we think there's a lot more to do in this space. But that's sort of how we think circularity is quite linked with decarbonization.
Thank you for highlighting that cradle-to-cradle approach rather than cradle-to-grave, and the importance of breaking silos. I'd like us to transition to thinking about some of the opportunities and challenges more specifically, looking at the plastics front specifically. You mentioned some statistics on e-waste, but on plastics, according to the World Economic Forum, around 50% of global plastic production is for single use. According to the OECD, plastic waste is projected to triple by 2060. But we're also hoping for historically legally binding UN Global Plastics Treaty to come into effect next year. And I know, Han, you've been looking into this quite closely, and I'm sure Danielle as well. On the critical minerals front, we're seeing innovations in battery design that eliminate the need for cobalt, lithium, and other metals. We're also seeing advancements in recovery from mining waste, known as tailings reprocessing, and also the emergence of battery passports on the traceability front. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you see kind of specifically in your organizations and in the industry more broadly? What are some of the biggest hurdles in getting some of these developments off the ground? And thinking about this in the lines of supply-demand mechanics and regulation and technology. What do you see some of the biggest hurdles? And anyone who'd like to get started?
We're being so linear if I go first, so I'll go second.
Well, since I'm in the plastic industry, I can go first. I completely understand many of you, including myself, are frustrated with the low recycling rate. But actually, over the past 10, 15 years, quite a lot of progress have been made. If you look at the recycling rate in Asia, it increased from 9% to 12%. And also, the mismanaged plastic waste in Asia has been reduced from 41% to 30%. If you look at Europe, the recycling rate increased from 10% to 15%. And also, they reduced their landfill rate from 51% to 39%. So a lot of progress have been made. And this is because one of the reasons is the new technology being developed, as I mentioned, designed for recyclability. If a plastic packaging, no matter if it's single use or multi-use, if it's not designed for recycling, it cannot be recycled. But now many companies, they start to adopt this design for recyclability technology, convert their packaging into 100% recyclable. So we start to see more and more plastic being collected and being recycled. However, technology can only take us to a certain level. We need a lot of other support. And one of the biggest challenges we're facing in terms of circular economy is a lack of infrastructure. In fact, there's 3 billion people, they don't have access to waste management. Even the plastic waste or any waste are not being collected, how they could be recycled. So we need to improve the infrastructure. And this required a collaboration between industry, NGOs, as well as government. So one of the project we have done in Latin America, in Argentina, which we have a large operation there. We collaborate with an NGO called Delterra. We collaborate with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is another nonprofit organization. We've collaborated with a local informal sector to collect more plastic waste. And eventually, we want to use those plastic waste as a feedstock and to support our commercial recycling operation. So we need a lot of support from the whole value chain so that we can improve the recycling rate eventually.
Actually, even I'd mentioned a quote from the WEF report. They actually also stated that only 14% of plastic packaging is collected for recycling. So that infrastructure piece is definitely a pain point.
And only 10% actually makes it to be recycled. So I think that's and if you're in this room, you probably are recycling, right? But how many times have you walked to your recycling bin and thought, is this recyclable? And how? And what do I need to do to it in order to make it recyclable? I think there's a really big education barrier, and there's a really big infrastructure barrier to getting plastics recycled. Again, surmountable, and we've got much of the technology, but there is a kind of education and infrastructure barrier. One model that I have seen emerge, is certainly a model that the foundation uses, is pre-competitive collaboration around this. And we, about 5 years ago, now almost 6 years ago, launched the Global Commitment, which had a lot of large companies, a lot of consumer packaged goods and plastic-using companies, virgin plastic-using companies, sign up to very ambitious targets. And 5 years in, They have not yet met those targets, but they have outperformed the market by about 25%. And that's because they are in the room together, they are focused on it, they are supporting each other. And these are, I won't name names, but these are very large companies that are highly competitive with each other. Their sustainability and plastics and supply chain people are in the room because they all need to solve this together. So I think where there's opportunity for pre-competitive collaboration, we need to lean into it for plastics. The Global Plastic Treaty, I can't overstate its importance because voluntary action by business alone will not solve this, period, and certainly not in the amount of time that we need to. In 2050, there are going to be more plastic than fish in the ocean, right? If you're in this room, you've probably heard that. That is bonkers. We need to solve this quickly. And right now, and this is part of the work that we're doing, is we're putting pressure on countries to really make this treaty a binding agreement. Right now, the language amounts to suggestions. And we know that under profitability conversations, under political pressures, suggestions aren't going to fly. They're not even going to be considered. So we really need this treaty to be binding. And the US is one of the countries that has been less ambitious than we need, has started to really turn, has started to get more ambitious to the good, and we have a very limited time to get there. So say to the extent that the folks in this room are in conversations, you're in companies, you're talking to folks that are in government and in the system and can influence, this is probably the most important investment of time for plastics right now.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Kunal, any thoughts on the mining front?
I have lots. I think there's three broad areas that we still think are bottlenecks and sort of we struggle with. The first one broadly is the supply. There's a lot of supply of what you can recycle. We just talked about some huge numbers of different forms of waste. So they can all be recycled. They all have valuable critical metals and minerals in them. So that's not the problem. There's actually a lot more than we can sort of even recycle today. So the supply isn't the problem. The capacity to recycle is limited. And I would say the capacity to recycle in proper ways with high environmental standards, high labor standards is even more limited. And that capacity happens to be in only a few places in the world. Whereas any form of waste, municipal waste, plastics, e-waste, batteries, they are all over the world. So it's a simple problem, which is you have waste pretty much, generated, distributed proportion to per capita income, population density, all of those metrics. But the facilities that can actually properly recycle at scale are in a handful of places in the world. And so then the problem becomes, you have to, the problem of today, not 100 years from now, the problem of today is how do I move those 62 million tons from wherever they are and take it to the 10 places or less in the world that can actually properly do this. And one big challenge is all the laws that govern trans-border movement of material, especially labeled waste, were written 50 years ago or 80 years ago. And they were written for an era of linear consumption. So at the time, the laws were written with the right mindset, and I still think they should all be followed and whatnot. But they were written at a time where there wasn't really much recycling. It was all about waste dumping and trade in waste. So the laws were all written to prevent trade in waste, which is very commendable, and we should obviously make sure of that. And there's no child labor being used in a developing country in disassembling your laptops. Problem is we haven't graduated from that to a circular economy world where the same laws should facilitate the movement of materials. I hate calling something waste. We come up with new fancy terms. I couldn't come up with one. So we call them post-consumer resources. Doesn't sound really fancy. But we need to find ways to make it easier to take material from a region that doesn't have good recycling capacity to bring it to a region where it can properly recycle at proper labor standards and high environmental standards. Actually, the way those, I won't name which regulations, I'm sure you guys can figure it out. I don't want to get into a political nice from here, but the way the regulations are actually being amended today, it's making it worse in terms of achieving circularity because it's more expensive now, more paperwork, takes more time. And there's I think there's a topic about what's the role of SMEs. Well, most of the companies that are in waste management recycling, they are SMEs. And they don't want to deal with signing a $2 million bond because suddenly overnight somebody sitting somewhere in Geneva changed something, and now something you were doing for 10 years is now called hazardous waste. Nothing has changed about it. So I'm not critical of the regulations. I just think a big ask for circularity is it's a global matter, especially waste. And so we need to have regulations that make sense in this sort of world of circularity where everything needs to be circular. Now, one counter argument to my own point is the other option is just build good recycling facilities in every country. You don't have to do transborder, and I would be all up for it, except it's very expensive. Some of these things cost $5 billion to build, so we don't have that either. And you have vacant, excess capacity in other places. So I'm just looking for some pragmatism in how can we do the right thing and be more circular. So that's sort of one bottleneck. Sorry, I took too much time. So the other ones, I'll keep them very short. The other two, I think, one is different parts of the world have taken different approaches to legislations and government intervention in the whole waste sort of ecosystem. Europe, I think, is a great example, especially for e-waste, which they are now applying for batteries, which is the policies are very stringent when it comes to collection. There are collection schemes, they're funded by governments, there are very strict laws around it. And I know in the US, we don't like legislating too many things, but that's one place where legislation has had a huge success. Europe has the highest collection recycle rates in the world for e-waste. And they're taking it one step forward with batteries. They're going from recycling to circularity. That's the battery directive. There is the same team that did the V directive that's doing the battery directive. And so that's going in the right direction. Maybe we should sort of learn from it and apply it in other places. And the last thing I would say, I think Danielle mentioned, so there's a lot of funding available. IRA has a lot of funding. There's a lot of funding from the US, CRMA. And I think that's great. The only ask I would have is a lot of that funding I have seen go more very downstream. Some of that funding, at least in the US, needs to come midstream. And that is where that's processing, including recycling. I haven't seen that happen in a big way. And it's actually very difficult to access that funding. It seems much easier to get funding for very downstream. But my not criticism, but my point is all those downstream investments won't really do anything if we can't build the upstream and the midstream. So those are the bottlenecks. None of them are unsurmountable, but those are all interesting challenges we need to unlock for circularity to sort of scale.
Thank you, Kunal. It sounds like we have a plethora of challenges to overcome. I'd like us to think kind of transitioning to kind of solution development. And you've all mentioned the power of convening. I'd love to kind of transition into that cross-industry collaboration partnership piece briefly. Maybe we start back with you, Kunal. It's quite exciting this morning. There was an announcement of a partnership with Glencore and Schneider Electric on copper circularity. Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting space. We are trying something new, and I think it might become a bit of a model for how to do these things. I don't know if it's perfect, but it's sort of a process. So Schneider Electric, we are partners with them for a long period of time. We do a lot of work together. They actually, mining is one of their big customer segments. So they supply into mining both equipment as well as automation software, as well as now they're getting into AI. And we run a lot of our plants on their both software and their hardware, right? So they are actually, Glencore is a big customer. On the flip side, if you think about Schneider, from their physical side of their business, they make pretty large drives and motors and other industrial equipment, which uses a lot of copper. They are a huge consumer of copper. They also own other very interesting businesses like Secure Power and APC, which is the world's biggest uninterrupted power supply company. So if you're using any, I think the days of big desktops are probably behind us, but I had one, and if you had a UPS, but even beyond that, any battery, mobile, even for solar panels, backup power. So solar power is a big part of their ecosystem. So we are working with them to figure out how to supply them recycled copper, low carbon copper for their needs. We are working on recycling the batteries that are there in their ecosystem, and they are helping Glencore with our decarbonization goals because their software solutions can run digital twins, can do optimization. They can help us with our own sort of decarb goals. So it's a full sort of 360. And then the other thing we are going to explore is a full circular copper loop on not just copper, but could be other materials. We're starting with copper on their own products. So as their products hit end of use, we can help get them back and recycle, starting with copper and then other materials. So it's a very interesting collaboration. Two large companies, they are big on digital plus electrification is equal to sustainability. We are big on our own sort of climate goals, being a big resource company, which is not easy. So we need to decarbonize ourselves, and we are helping them decarbonize by providing for example, recycled copper, helping recycle batteries. And it's been a 2-year effort, and we're very happy to sort of share it earlier this morning. But yeah, that's one example of how we're working together in this space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. A great example of circularity and decarbonization coming together. Han, I'd like to move on to you to share how your company works with others to form partnerships. I think there was a P&G partnership as well. And just before you answer that, Danielle, I'd like to later come to you on SMEs specifically, just because one of the focus areas for this COP is looking at how to better engage with small and medium enterprises. So I'd love to hear about how the foundation works with them. But first, over to you, Han.
Yeah, so partnership is very important. Earlier, I mentioned our corporate target, reduce greenhouse gas emission by 5 million metric tons, commercialize 3 million metric tons of recycled product. But without partnership, those are just a corporate target, and they're meaningless number. If we cannot sell that 3 million metric ton of a recycled product to someone, it's just a waste. And for the low carbon side, if there's no downstream customer value low carbon solutions, then there's no point of reducing this amount of greenhouse gas emissions. We have to commercialize it so that we can further decarbonize ourselves, further advance in terms of a circular economy. So we definitely need a lot of collaboration. But in this, under the concept of circular economy and decarbonization, we need a new type of collaboration. So traditionally, if you look at our value chain, when we collaborate with immediate our customer, the immediate supplier and the immediate customer. But under a circular economy, because you want to change the business model from linear to circular, you may find a more cross-industry collaboration and a cross-value chain collaboration. So Chhavi, you mentioned the P&G. So P&G and Dow, we see at the both end of the value chain. We're very upstream, and P&G is very downstream and consumer facing. And we are collaborating together to develop a new type of recycling technology we call the dissolution, which we can target a very low and flexible packaging material and then convert them into high quality recycled product. And we can even make a food contact kind of quality. So the unique of this partnership is because we sit on the both end of the value chain. And P&G, they didn't sit there, wait for a recycler to bring recycled content to them because they have a commitment to Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They set up a corporate goal to incorporate more and more recycled content. They can just sit there and wait for a recycler to bring PCR products to their doorstep, but they didn't do that. They collaborated with an upstream company like Dow to leverage our material science to develop a recycling technology so that in the future, there will be more and more recyclers adopt this type of technology, and there will be more and more recycled product on the market. So that's the part I'm very excited about the future collaboration.
Thank you, Han. Over to you, Danielle, specifically on SMEs, if you could.
Sure. So SMEs are so important to the circular economy and to industrial decarbonization, I think for a couple of reasons. One is it's often where innovation happens, where you can, in startup or smaller enterprises, really start to shape the technologies and the process improvements and the partnerships that work, and you can do it on a smaller scale and model it out. And we have a startup accelerator that has a ton of circular economy startups that often feed intelligence to the larger companies or absorbed by larger companies down the road as they innovate for the circular economy. So that's one piece. And head to the Climate Science Fair. If you all haven't been, Emerson Collective on the High Line has a set of their kind of investees, their portfolio partners that are circular economy innovations that are coming from the startup community, and really a couple of great ones on recycling and the leveraging of AI. So they're everywhere. It's just about getting them into the right spaces and scaled. The other role that SMEs play is that bringing these innovations to scale, and this is kind of the medium-sized enterprises, tend to be more regional or more local, so you get material flows. They have more control over their suppliers, and they're more predictable customer bases often, and so you get an opportunity to have more localization, but also to test models, right? To bring those innovations to the next level of scale and to have those bright spots and those opportunities. In conversations like this, the questions that I'm always asked are, is it possible? And share examples, right? And so I think that's most of our example. We have a lot of examples from large companies that are in our network, but a lot of the really compelling consumer-facing and B2B examples are coming from SMEs. So I think it's really quite an innovation hub for the foundation and for the circular economy in general.
Can I add on the
course.
SME? I think they are very critical, particularly for circular economy, because if you think about the recycling, it's a very localized issue. And if you look at most of the recyclers, they are small, medium enterprise, or maybe even smaller, just like a mom and pop, that kind of a shop. And now we want to build this circular economy. We need them. However, they are not at a stage at which they can absorb a larger investment, let's say from World Bank or Asia Development Bank. So that's the challenge. But we definitely want to help SME. And that's one of the reasons Dow is one of the founding investors of Circular Capital's Ocean Fund. It's a world first investment fund dedicated for improving recycling. So together with a few other companies, we put together over $100 million, and we invest those money into Southeast Asia as well as India to help those small, medium recyclers. We can incubate them so that they can reach a level when they can receive a large investment from institutional investors. So we call it bridging the gap, catalytic capital. So SME is very important. We just need to help them from a different angle.
Just want to add something on the SME point. So I think, and I think we all recognize, so there's a difference between recycling and circularity, right? Because recycling is part of circularity, but it's the very end. And before that, you have repair, reuse, repurposing, product life extension, all of those good stuff. And in my experience, as being in the sort of the recycling industry, all of that is also very important. The repair, the reuse, second life, predominantly that is all very SME and more on the S side of the SME, because we still don't have, and that's a good sort of space for companies to play a role. And it's opening up right to repair and those sort of actions. And we're seeing OEMs make it easier to repair devices. But still, if you want something repaired versus throw it in the recycling bin, your options are pretty much SMEs. So if you talk about circularity, I think, yeah, I mean, they also play a big role in the other loops, not just recycling. Just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you so much for everything you've shared so far. I'd like to now transition to a lightning round before we turn to audience questions. So I'll be asking you two questions, and we'll go kind of one direction and back. The first question is a sort of call to action for COP29. The theme of this Climate Week is It's Time. And we're now less than 50 days away from COP29. So in the context of what we've discussed today so far, what would be your call to action for COP? Kunal, am I putting you on the spot by asking you right away?
Sure. No, I think it's very simple. I think it should be very clear that we need to decisively embrace circularity. And for a simple fact, there's many reasons you can think about it. The simple fact is that the primary resource is not enough and will not be built in time for any of the goals. So you have to embrace circularity, and that means, this is a call to action, not just to OEMs and the government and NGOs, but it's to like each one of us. I think we just need to transform from a sort of a wasteful mindset to a sort of, it's a cultural mindset change, circularity, and we need to think about a economic prosperity that's very circular. So we don't have time, and we can look at the supply demand gaps you won't be able to close without circularity.
Ask or outcome you'd like to see from COP?
I think I would go back to make it easy to move materials so they can be recycled while you're building capacity in each economy.
Han?
Okay, COP29. And this year, the COP29 will be in Baku, Azerbaijan. And Baku is a city founded upon oil. And at a certain point, they produce 1/5 of a global oil. So why they host COP29? Because it's time. It's time to change. And this is the same thing for plastic, same thing for circularity. It's time for all of us to change. And same month in November, there will be the last negotiating session for global treaty to end plastic pollution. So as a company, we welcome a global legally binding agreement on preventing plastic waste leakage and advance a circular economy. So my call to action is let's work together to drive, work together on a plan that drives 3 priorities. One is innovation. We need to develop a newer technology. The second priority is developing environmental sound recycling infrastructure as well as the industry. And then the last one is let's work together to develop an inclusive business model, an inclusive investment plan so that we can sustain a low carbon and a circular society.
We need to, in an enduring way, tether circular economy and climate. It has not been a joint conversation, and COP is an opportunity this year to do that. And we need to make it make sense for companies to make progress on things like plastic pollution and the use of virgin plastics. And it doesn't make economic sense right now because we are so highly subsidizing a linear economy. And so having the member states and the business leaders that are in that room connect and coordinate and figure out how to subsidize a circular economy for real business transformation. All business transformation needs subsidy in the beginning, right? Most of it anyway.
What I'm hearing is financing for infrastructure, for ensuring that we have free movement of these materials to the right sites, and really targeting higher up the value chain. Final question, again, sort of lightning round if we can. Given that majority of our audience are students and are currently in recruiting season, that's kind of the fall semester for us, what would you like to share in terms of advice for those in the room who are applying for jobs or are mid-career professionals that are looking to make an impact in this space? Danielle, could you get us started?
Sure. Don't go into climate. We are all going to be working on climate in 10 years, whether we choose it or not. You should, go into climate explicitly if there's an organization or a role that really sings to you, but I would recommend you following what really energizes you and your passions, whether that's marketing or operations or supply chain, and bring climate to that profession, bring circular economy to that profession, because the folks that are in this room are sold, and we need to really get business and policymakers on board, and folks that are not necessarily in traditional climate and circular economy roles, but those that are on the business side and driving change.
I think of three things. Number one, be curious, challenge the status quo, and if you find something you are interested in, develop a problem-solving skill. Because we need all of you to tackle the most challenging issue in the future. So we need the problem-solving skill. And the third one is developing the collaborative spirit, build a collaboration with all stakeholders. We live in a very polarized society, and this has nothing good for develop a sustainable future. We need everyone, all the stakeholders work together to solve those challenging issues.
Look, I think it's a very interesting time to be somebody, who's in a business school or mid-career, have the opportunity to take a year or two off and look for a career change or progression. We are in the middle of, my opinion, we're in the middle of multiple transitions. You have the energy transition, everyone knows about it. We're also transitioning from a linear to a circular world. We talked about it today. We are transitioning from what we used to do, I don't know what I would call it, to things that are going to be more automated with AI and other forms of efficiency. Things will change. We are in the middle of a change where, we're going to have a more aging population. So these are all changes. If I were you, I would make two lists. I would make a list of knowing these changes in the direction of travel in this next 10 to 20 years. What is it that really interests you, right? And then a second list, which is what do you think you're good at? And whatever you're good at can be either directly related or could be a transferable skill. I would look at the intersection of the two and then try and jump there and take a chance. I think it's always easy to explain life backwards very logically. In reality, it's about trying things, and sometimes you are at the right place at the right times. Other times you'll do something and then course correct, but it's all learning. So you have the opportunity to be more open-minded and explore a lot of things because you are in this environment in a business school. I had that opportunity 12 years ago, and I turned out like I didn't exactly plan it this way, but worked out okay. So that would be my advice.
So much. I think we have some time for questions. We have folks with mics in the room. I think if start in the front, right? Or go ahead.
We starting with me? Okay, can you hear me okay with the mask? Thanks so much for coordinating this event and for the presentation. My name is Chelsea and I'm based in DC. I work on supply chain policy. So a lot of the topics you've talked about, I work on in relation to the automotive industry and EV batteries. Kunal, I really appreciate at the end what you mentioned, which is that there's a hierarchy of circularity where recycling is really not to say the bottom of the barrel, but it kind of is the end goal because we have recycling in the linear economy. I think a huge part that isn't talked about by industry is demand reduction. I'm really curious what your thoughts are as an industry person. Is that a conflict of interest for businesses that are started in a linear era where your main goal is profit? Can you talk about what you perceive your role of demand reduction and bringing that into the conversation about sustainability?
So just so I get the question right, so by demand reduction, you mean demand of EVs or, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly curious because I work a lot on the minerals side.
Yes.
I also work on standards. So what you're
Right.
saying about recycling, there's a lot of different types that aren't really great for the environment either. I'm just curious as well if you can think about it in terms of EV batteries or the other products, because minerals are in everything in our society.
Right. Yeah, I think it's quite, if you think about it, So for two perspectives, right? So minerals either from primary supply or minerals from the recycled supply. If you think about minerals from the recycled supply, as I said earlier, you can take any form of waste which has minerals, and we recycle probably less than 20% of it. So at the moment, the demand side, there's a lot more that you can recycle than you can handle. So it's not even about, if the question is, should we even consume less in the first place so you don't have to deal with these things? Yeah, but you have a long way to go before you run out of things to recycle. On the primary side, that's just going to be driven by the direction that we take with decarbonization. It's just a fact that certain aspects of decarbonization will require metals. And again, I'll go back to the difference, which is metals you can continue using and reusing versus a hydrocarbon molecule in that sense. So again, that demand is being dictated by the built environment that's needed for coming up with the renewables side or battery storage or mobility. And right now, I think that demand is sort of slowed down, but it's expected, again, I'm thinking 10, 20-year timescales, it's going to be back, whether we are talking more hybrids, less EVs, and whichever shape it goes. So it's a classic, it's a new change, and anytime you have this sort of a transition, there's always going to be a mismatch between supply demand, which will lead to some system shocks. I think we are in one of them today where metal prices are. It's cyclical, so it will go back and sort of correct itself. So if you look at it point in time, it will give you one answer. But if you look at it over a larger time scale, and again, people have picked 2050 as the year. So if you look at it in that time frame, then yeah, my view is there is enough to do from both sides before you hit sort of a demand limit.
Thank you very much to the panelists and Chhavi for the panel. So very informative. I have a couple of questions, and they are hopefully interlinked. So one is that I strongly believe one of the key levers to achieve this energy transition and the net zero economy are the carbon markets. Yep. So that will be a mechanism to really push this transition forward. So the question is, are you aware of, is there any mechanism that allows the creation of carbon credits via circularity? So I'm just thinking about, for example, copper or steel. So that will be a key component it's a key part of our lives. If we can recycle steel or copper, then we will be avoiding the emissions of the mining component at least, and in the production or refining parts, so at least a fraction of them. So question one is there a mechanism to account and credit those emissions? And then the second part is big companies like Glencore and Dow will have scope 3 targets. So the question is circularity also assisting in the scope 3 space? Is there an impact on that? Thank you.
Okay, I can give it a try. So to first question, the carbon market, I think that's very important to enable a transition to low carbon society. Actually, this morning we did another event here during the Climate Week. We launched a market-based carbon accounting mechanism. We call it the carbon footprint ledger. So that's a mechanism which we will ensure the carbon reduction, for example, from our Canadian asset, be translated to our downstream customer, eventually to the brand owner's side. So this is definitely we are exploring, and we need in the whole industry to support this so that we can accelerate the decarbonization. To your second question, the scope 3 emission, yes, definitely the recycling or circular economy will help you to reduce scope 3 emission. One side is most of those recycled material, for example, post-consumer recycled content or renewable feedstock, if you compare them to fossil-based feedstock, they have a much lower carbon footprint compared to fossil-based feedstock. So that will reduce your Scope 3 emission. And also, if you think about the end of life of your product, if they are made from recycled content and if they will be recycled in the future life, there is no burden for the end of life stage based on the GHG protocol, ISO standard. So from the feedstock side and end of life side, circular and renewable solution will help a corporate to reduce their Scope 3 emissions.
Maybe just quickly. So we've actually tried the copper aspect of what you're saying. So my term for that is we explored, you have RECs, so the REC certificates in carbon. So we didn't go public with it, but we did a private sort of beta trial. We did a REC for recycling. So we came up with recycled metal credits for the sake of a better, again, I'm not good at naming things. So the recycled metal credits concept is we produce 40,000 tons of copper from recycled sources. 40,000 tons is the output of, Glencore's Cobar mine, which we sold for $1 billion last year. So just as a scale. So we produce 40,000 tons of copper from recycled sources. We launched these recycled metal credits, essentially said, if you are an OEM, you want to buy one of my recycled metal credits, you'll get a certificate which says it's 1 ton of recycled copper. You can offset the use of primary copper applying recycled copper. It has an implied carbon benefit. We didn't go there with this 80% number I gave you earlier. So we didn't price it because if it's priced, it's a security, it's a big issue. So this was for free. So we basically said we'll give the certificates for free in a private sort of trial. So I can't name, but some of the largest industrial companies participated. They bid on it. We were oversubscribed, 5x, and then we had to allocate. So they are now exploring how can I take these recycled metal certificates and explore things that they do with the products they're making with these. So it's sort of what you're asking in a different way. So we are approaching it that way. Again, we'll see. So at least what we found out is there's demand for these. We didn't go into discovering the price. We'll see how it evolves, and maybe this will become a price thing at some point. So we've done it, but in a very sort of small, private sort of way. And then quickly, Scope 3, Glencore, yes, of course. So our climate transition action plan is public, and improving and catalyzing more circularity is one pillar of it. And I can give you an example. Our copper smelter in Canada is one of the lowest carbon copper producers out there. A lot of its feedstock is recycled. We have goals to reduce how much we take in as concentrates from mining and increase how much we take from recycled sources, and that will directly go towards reducing some of our own emissions. So,
Question. I'm afraid we only have time for one last question.
Thank you very much. My name is Silas. I work with a lot of early stage climate tech startups, and I'm just curious, especially in the industrial production side, what can they do and what can they keep in mind if they want to partner with the likes of Glencore and Dow in the future? What are the things that are very important at the early stages so that one day they can get investment or partner with you?
maybe I can recycle a question. I was at a Schneider Electric Ventures event. Somebody asked me this. So, I think it's actually the first thing. I work with a lot of startups. We've invested in some are now public. And my first advice is just keep in mind, you're not pitching to a VC. We don't have a corporate venture arm. You're not even pitching to a corporate VC. So most people I met, like amazing founders, great technology, really good communicators, they've honed the art of pitching, but you're not pitching to a VC. It's a massive company. It's about, risk and how we think about risk. It's about how we think about, this investment, what it means to, our business when it scales. So it's a different way to think about it. Put yourself in the shoe of the corporate when I'm sure you have a great business model which solves something very interesting at least for a big company like us. You just have to change the mindset. And the second thing I say is always think about how will this run at scale? And by scale, I mean like million tons, million cubic meters, whatever you are doing. Because, I'm a bit of a geek, so I love technology and I love meeting people who do this. It's really fascinating, all the new business models and technology and approaches that are coming. You have to think, again, by the time you're ready to sort of talk to corporates, either for contracts, investments, whatever, you'll have to explain how this thing will work at scale. And that's where, especially today in the current funding environment, so it's very important to be able to credibly defend how I can scale. Is it superlinear, sublinear? What is that mechanism? I think those are the two big pieces of feedback I have. Thanks.
Much. Please join me in a round of applause for our speakers, Danielle, Han, and Kunal.